I really wish I had a joke for this little intro sequence, but all I have to say is this may be the noisiest video that I've had in a long time, so I apologize for the sound of fans going off, sounds of dogs chewing bones in the background, and cats making cat sounds and going up and down the stairs. So, yeah, anyway, time to start the episode. Hello everyone, I'm Papa Kenn and welcome to episode 77 of Discovering Doctor Who. Now just so you know, some of you did voice in the comments that you were curious what I thought about the new intro and about the new design of the TARDIS. Well, I did intend on mentioning that in the previous episode, but I forgot, so if you haven't seen it already, I actually did talk about this a little bit in the first episode of a new Let's Play that I actually posted last week, and I'll link to it, well, right here and then also down in the description below. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the Bells of St. John. And I'm curious as to what you all might think I'm going to think of this episode once we get into the end of it. But let's start with my favorite parts, starting with the prequel. Now the prequel was just this little sweet, cute moment with the Doctor talking to this little girl, and I thought it was pretty nice. You know, it was just sort of like, you know, this little quiet moment between the Doctor's adventures. And then that last line from the mom came, and like I was, you know, kind of wavering in and out of attention, and then all of a sudden when she said Clara's name, I was just like, oh, that's Clara? What? So that really took me by surprise. So I was like, I mean, I'm sure there were some people that were probably watching and be like, oh, the little girl's probably Clara, and they were right. But I mean, for me, it legitimately took me by surprise. So I really liked that moment. And I found it to be like, you know, a really nice way to lead into this episode. Now, my second favorite part of this episode was the intro. Well, first of all, they were definitely using similar graphics to make like the text and everything appear on screen and just the lighting. It was very similar to Sherlock, which was, you know, sort of another callback in addition to the Christmas special. But yeah, I just found like I really liked the effects and the way they had that one character narrating what was going on. And it was constructed so well. Like, it seemed like if they had taken The Matrix and made it into this sort of almost kind of a horror story, or at least the intro to a horror story, that's what that was. It was really well done. It's just like the entire intro was so good, so effective that while admittedly the end of that introduction didn't give me chills exactly, you know, it did give me this feeling of dread, which, you know, a lot of things, especially even horror movies and shows of today, can't always really put in that feeling of dread, but they did a really good job of it in the introduction to this episode. Now, my third favorite part of the Bells of St. John were the bells. And I mean, you know, there were nothing major. It was just this little gag playing along with the, you know, the symbol on the TARDIS, which I don't actually remember being there. If that's been there for a long time, please let me know, but I swear it's just a sticker that got stuck on there. Either that or I'm just not very observant for the most part. But I did find it to be funny and rather enjoyable that the Bells of St. John was the phone of the TARDIS ringing. I really liked that. Now, my fourth favorite part of this episode was just another quick little reference, but the book Summer Falls by Amelia Williams. And I found that to be, I was honestly surprised that it wasn't Amelia Pond, but rather that, you know, she went with her married name. But just the fact that, you know, Amy, I don't know whether it was like, you know, when she was, you know, in her regular time, or maybe she wrote the book, and as well as possibly other books, back in the past, you know, where her and Rory were sent. But regardless, I just found that to be a nice little reference and a nice little callback to like, you know, hey, it's Amy Williams, Amy Pond, we. But yeah, so yeah, that was my fourth favorite part of the episode. And my fifth favorite part of the Bells of St. John were the Spoonheads. And now, admittedly, I thought that the way it was utilized at the very end with the the boss lady, was her name Kizlet? Miss Kizlet? I can't remember exactly, but that part was like the way she reacted was kind of over dramatic, but just the way that they were utilized throughout the rest of the episode was really well done, especially when it came to Clara. Now, first of all, the little girl appearing on the staircase, and then all of a sudden Clara realizes that she doesn't realize it was pulled from her subconscious, but it was the girl from the cover of the book. That was just an amazing sequence for me. I was just kind of like, holy crap, that is where it came from. Because I didn't, I remembered seeing the cover, but I didn't make that connection of the little girl and this little girl that's right in front of us right now, or right in front of Clara. So that was really, really cool. And also the speech patterns with the Spoonheads, it was just really well done, very creepy, and very reminiscent of the unknown entity from Midnight. It wasn't exactly mimicking the speech. It was just like that repeating afterward and almost sort of a paraphrase of what was just said. And then, of course, before I move on, there was the moment where we think that Clara is talking to the Doctor, and then it turns out to be one of those things, and it was just. Even though it was a very short sequence, the way that for those first few seconds, I thought it was the Doctor talking to her. I thought it was the Doctor, just repeating those things. But then after, the second or third sentence, it's just kind of like, oh no, it's one of those things again. So yeah, I just, I don't remember what they're supposed to be called as Miss Kizlet or whatever her name is, referred to them as. But the Spoonheads were a really cool part of this episode. Now, my sixth favorite part was another rather small thing, but it was also fairly significant, was the hacking of minds. The way that Miss Kizlet was able to just hack the minds of her employees. She was able to raise the paranoia of, I guess her main security guy or whatever, raise his paranoia, and when she needed her worker to be able to do something really fast and really quickly, she upped his IQ to max. And just the way all of that was done, and it was utilized throughout the episode here or there, not to a great extent, but just at certain points, I just thought it was really, really cool and honestly quite brilliant. It was some pretty brilliant storytelling. Pretty much everything in this episode was, in my opinion. I won't get ahead of myself though. Now, that also actually leads into my seventh favorite part of the episode, which is the cafe scene, where Miss Kizlet basically hacks into all of these different people's minds and talks with the Doctor without anyone but the Doctor apparently being able to realize it. She hacks the guy that is behind the bar, or behind the counter at the cafe. She hacks one of the waitresses, I guess. She hacks the little girl, and then even the woman on the TV, or I guess maybe it was just like an image of the woman in the TV. That was hard to tell, but that entire sequence was just really well done, and we got some really good acting from the Doctors, giving his very serious, his very serious persona. And it was pretty well done, the way that the actors playing these different, versions of Miss Kizlet, just rather seamlessly went in and out of the hacked mode and just regular person. I really like that. So yeah, that was a really cool part of it, the whole mind hacking thing and the cafe scene. And then finally, my last favorite part of the episode was the restore factory settings. And that was just... Well, first of all, we find out that the Great Intelligence is behind all this. That was the client, so to speak. But then, just the restore factory settings, and it starts out with, it's like these people that have been, under that control for so long. It's like, they were just going to do their jobs. They were just going to do something. And, who knows how long they were there. They might have been gone for years, months. It was hard to tell. But then it goes to Miss Kizlet, and she's just sitting there, and she sort of leans in a way that was rather awkward, but then she speaks in this very childlike voice. It's like, are Mommy and Daddy coming back? Or, well, I'm paraphrasing of course, but just that moment right there, that part gave me chills because, while yes, it's like, in the Snowmen, the Great Intelligence basically, took control or manipulated this boy for years of his life. But I don't know, there was just something different about the way that he, or the Great Intelligence, he or she, utilized Miss Kizlet from such a young age. And I mean, she doesn't look extremely old, but I mean, one can only imagine that she had to have been under his power for, I don't know, I would estimate like 50 years. I mean, and I'm not saying anything about the woman that portrayed her, of course, but I mean, that blows my mind that they would be under that kind of control, and then all of a sudden she's sent back to, I mean, she said it herself, she doesn't even remember what she was like back then. And then we find out that what she was back then was a child of, I can't imagine she's anywhere near the double digits as far as age goes. So yeah, that was, just the entire resetting of people's minds, the restore factory settings, so to speak, was just phenomenal and really well done in my opinion. Now, I almost forgot another thing where you all were asking me about, people mentioned in the comments, like I said, about the TARDIS and the intro sequence. We got to see the Doctor's new outfit in this episode, and just to comment on that real quick, I thought it looked rather cool. The new bow tie doesn't stand out as much as the red bow tie, of course, but I feel like, I don't know, where it's like the Doctor is sort of in a darker place. It's like, he's had to, I don't know, it's just like he's in a different stage of his life in this incarnation. So I found the change of attire to be rather appropriate. I found it to be a bit more mature, I guess you could say, which I'm sure the Doctor's not going to be all that mature because, I mean, he's the 11th Doctor. But I really did like it, to be completely honest. I liked the new outfit. All right, but finally, moving on to my annoyances with this episode. And there are only a few of them, but for me at least, they felt rather significant. The first of which was the whole secluded monk thing. Now, while we do get some, we kind of get why he did it based off of the prequel and like the conversation that's had there. I don't know. I mean, especially if you didn't see the prequel, but even with it, it felt very strange, and I don't know. It just seems more realistic that the Doctor would have gone to, I don't know, just somewhere alone in space, somewhere to be by himself in the TARDIS and just think to himself, as opposed to separating himself completely from the TARDIS and secluding himself in this monastery with all these monks. It just, well, it did give room for an interesting opening of the episode, but at the same time, it felt very off. It didn't feel like something that should have been a part of the episode, just to be completely honest. Now, I'm sure some people might disagree, but that's how I felt, and it was just a really big, awkward annoyance for me in this episode, although I did get over it rather quick. Now, my second and final annoyance with the episode, and probably the most significant one. Okay, the episode takes place in 2013. 2013. And you expect me to believe that a 24-year-old, essentially a millennial, I guess, doesn't know anything about Twitter. Now, working with computers, I can understand and even see her not being seeing Clara just not being all that tech savvy, because there's some people that just aren't tech savvy no matter what their age. However, a 24-year-old in 2013 has seen enough billboards, has seen enough advertisements on TV, has heard of the internet enough to know what Twitter is. So the fact that they are able to determine, or they realize what happened to Clara, like she got matrixed and like got all this information in her head because she made a joke about Twitter. It's such a stretch, and that was probably the most poorly written aspect of the entire episode, and that's what kills me, is that, they could have gone in so many different ways. They could have just had her, keep with the Twitter joke, but, make the Doctor realize what's going on with something else. Like, she knows a lot about this technology in general. She knows something that she didn't know before. Not a Twitter joke, because there are no 24-year-olds, unless they're Amish. And even Amish kids probably know what Twitter is. So, that just... while on one hand you could see it as a nitpick, I suppose, just given the year that it takes place in and the character Clara's age, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so it just really, really bothers me. Now, moving on from there, done with my little rant about the 2 annoyances I had. Well, as always, let me know what some of your favorite parts of this episode were, as well as some of your annoyances. I know that, I can obviously tell that there are some people that don't like Clara in general, and you might have noticed I didn't reference her, except for, that second annoyance, which was more just the writing, not so much the character. But I didn't mention Clara in either the favorites or the annoyances. I'm going to touch on her a little bit later, but do let me know your favorite and least favorite aspects of this episode. Now, moving on, time for the track of the episode, and the soundtrack was interesting, to say the least, but I decided that my favorite of all the songs was Up the Shard, which was the segment where the Doctor takes his anti-gravity motorcycle and rides it up the spike, or the shard, and, gets into the building and everything and all that. It was just a really epic scene, really cool scene. So that's why it's definitely my favorite. The soundtrack overall for this episode was okay, like I said. Nothing really special, but it was definitely enjoyable. With the exception of one, and this is something I want to say brand new to any of these Discovering Doctor Who videos, and I actually had a least favorite track for this episode, and you might be able to guess what it is. But the title, according to the soundtrack, was Ba Ba Biker, and it's when the Doctor and Clara are on the bike and they're headed towards that cafe. And just that song playing, I didn't care for it. It just felt really out of place. I don't know if it was... I think it was all Murray Gold. I don't think this was any band perform, or any famous band's song or anything like that. It was just... It was easily one of the most out-of-place songs I think I've experienced so far in Doctor Who, and I didn't like it. I actually watched this episode twice, and when that segment came up, I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe it won't bother me as much. Oh, it's even worse. So hearing that song the second time around was even worse than the first time, which kind of blew my mind. But anyway, so my least favorite track of the episode for once. If you had any favorites of the episode, let me know what they were, of course, because, the soundtrack can affect different people different ways. Some of you might have even liked Ba Ba Biker, and if so, I apologize, but, that's just how I feel about that particular track. Now, moving on to the quote of the episode. There were some pretty nice little quotes here or there, but the one that stood out most to me, and it's because it made me laugh a lot, even more so the second time around watching the episode, was when the Doctor is talking to Clara from outside, and she's looking through the little video screen, and he references his mobile phone. And Clara says, "When you say mobile phone, why do you point at that blue box?" "Because it is a surprisingly accurate description." That line right there killed me, and it has a lot to do with Matt Smith's execution of it. But and that might even be a joke that has been said before on the show, but it made me laugh, and I absolutely loved it. The episode was fairly light on truly quotable lines, I think, but there were quite a few nice ones. So if you have any favorite quotes from the episode other than the one I picked, please do let me know, and I would love to know why you like that particular quote, if you have a reason. But okay, time for a new little segment here. It won't be one that pops up very frequently, but because the Great Intelligence showed up in this episode, I'm going to present my theory for who or what Clara is. Okay. And this is probably going to be really disjointed and won't make a lot of sense, but I'm going to try. So I think that because of the great intelligence's involvement, and because of Clara's involvement, her previous incarnation back in Victorian times of melting the great intelligence, I think they are connected in some way. I think that there is a connection there, and much like the snowmen were created by the thoughts of that little girl, people just thinking about the snowmen in general, I think that as a form of revenge, maybe, like Clara from the Victorian times is perhaps the original Clara. And the great intelligence took her image, which has resulted in, one, the Clara that is now the companion of the Doctor, and also her future incarnation, whose full name was Clara, or Oswin, just Oswin Oswald. Yeah. So, it's a really loose theory, and I'm sure it'll probably develop more over time, but that's what I think right now. It's like the Clara from Victorian times is the original, and the future Claras are these clones of sorts, these new incarnations of the original. I don't know, that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because saying it out loud right now makes it sound really stupid, but it is a developing theory, and as it changes over time, or if I come up with any new ideas, I will present them in video form. But anyway, okay, moving on from there, I do have a question, and I am curious. Let me know. Well, okay, I'll ask the question first. Who gave Clara the number? She said it was a woman in a shop, never says the name, and it's not shown at all in the prequels. So, yeah. Who gave Clara the number? Now, if it is revealed, don't tell me who it is, but rather, let me know that it will be revealed. Don't tell me when either, because I would like it to be a surprise. Don't tell me what episode, but just let me know whether it is or whether it isn't revealed. And if it isn't for some reason, tell me where I can find out, because that really honestly kind of bugs me. But alright, as for my overall final thoughts on this episode, I liked it. I thought it had a lot of really good ideas. I thought it had some really good execution in a lot of ways, both in the way the internet was portrayed, the Spoonheads, the interaction with the Doctor and Clara. I feel like the biggest weakness, other than the two annoyances that I mentioned earlier, was that Clara seemed like she didn't seem like a full character until she got that little mind hacking and learned more about the internet. Like, she didn't seem like a full character within the show, which is a big difference from back in the Russell T Davies era. All the companions were just normal people, but they seem to have a real personality about them. Whereas this time, since we've had Moffat, you can say whatever you will about Amy, but she definitely had a personality. And this time, it felt strange, because she seemed, at first, ordinary, but just kind of clueless, and almost like without a real character, again, until she got the mind hacking stuff, and then all of a sudden she seemed like a real character. I don't know. Let me know if, because I know that there are some of you that are definitely Clara lovers. Let me know why I might be seeing that incorrectly in your opinion. Those of you that hate Clara, it's like, I get it. You don't like her for whatever reason. I'm not saying I hate her. I'm just saying that the way that they went about introducing her felt a bit weak. So that definitely doesn't make this a favorite episode, in my opinion. But overall, the execution I felt was good. It just had some really significant negatives, unfortunately. So yeah. Do I have anything else to mention before closing this episode? No, I don't seem to. All right, well, everyone, thank you very much for joining me for episode 77 of Discovering Doctor Who. Finally getting into the second half of season 7, and we'll hopefully be able to get to the 50th episode or 50th anniversary episodes and all that soon after the move, most likely. But yeah, and again, I apologize for the weird background noises and the setting here. It's, just kind of a mess here in the basement right now. Just to remind you all, I do have my new little Let's Play series going. Part 2 will be going up on Friday, and I hope you enjoy that. I'd like to get more input from you all on those. There will be different Doctor Who related games going up in the future, and I might actually start updating it more than once a week if I can get enough recorded and set up, get ready to go. So yeah, I'll link to that down in the description below, and it's time to end the episode. Everyone, again, thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and I will see you next time on the next Discovering Doctor Who for the Rings of Akhaten? Akhaten? The Rings of Akhaten. Yeah. Anyway, Alonzi!